Now, in today's study, I'm going to be talking about the nature of sin, or how was it that humanity separated their relationship from God. And I'm going to start with the book of Romans. Let me share my screen. So, the book of Romans, chapter 3, verse 21 to 23. I'm going to read that section. I'm going to focus on verse 23 most of the time. But for context, I'm going to start reading from 21 to 23rd. So let's begin. But now the righteousness of God has been manifested apart from the law, although the law and the prophets bear witness to it. The righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ for all who believe. For there is no distinction, since all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So the emphasis I want to make here is on line 23. It says that all have sinned and have fallen short of the glory of God. And my emphasis would be to look at the origin where the relationship of God and men or humanity was broken. As you can see here in verse 23, it says that we all fall short of the glory of God. And I want to look at the origin where that happened. One thing that catches my eyes here is in verse 21. It says that the righteousness of God has been manifested apart from the law. Oftentimes, when it talks about the manifestation of God's righteousness, and if you look a little bit of the Old Testament scriptures, when it talks about the righteousness of God, it talks about the mercy of God. So, righteousness of God is also connected to the mercy of God, because God manifests his righteousness towards humanity by being merciful and showing his nature. And that's you can see that, and I believe that's in Exodus uh 13 or 32, somewhere around there, when Moses actually got to see the backside of God, when he asked to when Moses asked God if he could see him. So that's one section that connects the righteousness of God with His actual mercy, because the way that God manifests His righteousness towards humanity is by showing mercy. Otherwise, we could not even uh, see His goodness. So where did humanity, took its own way and fell apart from God's plan? We're going to look at the book of Genesis, chapter 3, because here on line number 23, it says, we have all sinned and fallen short of being capable of receiving uh, the goodness and the love of God, because we're no longer in relationship with God. But I want to see where that happens. So let me look at the second scripture. The second scripture is found in Genesis chapter 3. I recommend that you read Genesis chapter 1 and 2, so you understand the whole story behind the scriptures that I will go over. So on chapter 3, Genesis chapter 3, after after man or humanity has fallen away from God because they were disobedient and they ate the tree that God asked them not to eat. So it's not so much that they ate of a certain fruit; it was the fact that they disobeyed that that broke away our relationship with God. So Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. Let's let me read that. So it says, God is speaking in this scripture. God is speaking to the snake and the woman, and after humanity broke away from God, God cursed the earth, and a lot of things happened. So that's why I recommend you read chapter 1 and chapter 2. So God is speaking right now to the snake and the woman, And I'll be reading that now. So it says, chapter 3, verse 15, it says, I will put enmity between you and the woman. He's referring to the snake and the woman. In other words, I will make you two enemies from one another. So the snake, or that represents uh, the evil forces, or Satan, God is telling Satan, I will make you uh, an enemy to the woman, and the woman will be your enemy. And between hers, the seed of the woman, and the seed of the snake, he will he shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. Sounds very complicated, but I'll break it down. It's really not that difficult. So basically, the God is telling the snake that he will make the woman its enemy, and that the enemy, that the seed of the woman will also be the enemy of the snake, and that the seed of the woman will be bruised by the snake, and the seed of the woman will be bruised on the heel of the seed of the woman. But this is actually a promise of God. That's basically He's saying, now that you guys separated yourself from me and you have chosen not to be with me, I will have to come down myself and rescue you, and I will use the woman to be born into the world as a human person, and I will have to come down and rescue you. And evil, or the Satan will bruise the heel of his foot. Uh, the heel he will bruise, and you shall bruise his heel. So it represents the death of when Jesus died on the cross. So basically, uh, God being merciful right after he, he cursed the earth. He had to. It wasn't that he wanted to curse all these things, the earth and the woman and the man and everybody got cursed. Uh, I believe it has to do because God is just. He cannot deny the fact that humanity had chosen to walk away from God, away from relationship. And as Adam and Eve had fallen away from relationship from God, in Genesis, I believe chapter 1 or chapter 2, it talks about God coming into the Garden of Eden and walking in the cool of the day. And then he doesn't see Adam or Eve because they're hiding. They're hiding from God because somehow they don't feel right because they had just received sin into their lives and separated themselves from God. And God asked them a question. He asked Adam, "Where are you?" So he was looking for them. And God asks a question, it's not that he doesn't know the answer because he's omniscient, meaning he knows everything. When God asked that question, it was because he was trying to be he was trying to give Adam a chance to come clean and tell him and confess that he had done something inappropriate. But instead of taking the opportunity and repenting, Adam did the opposite. He hid and he blamed God. So he told God, well, the woman you gave me, she gave me some of that food, and so it's basically your fault. So he was trying to make excuses. It's very typical of humanity to blame others for your problems and making excuses. So after all those curses went on and everybody just got a part of that curse, God makes a promise to come down to earth and rescue humanity. And he promised to come down to earth through the seed of the woman, uh, through a child. Uh, of course, the seed of the woman represents a child. He's basically saying, I will have to come down, be born amongst you, and carry your burden or carry your sin on my back. so I'll have to carry you. Uh, and what I really like about Genesis chapter 3 is that God is not freaking out or having a headache or just, just having a difficult time with humanity. He knows what has happened. Uh, but he also right away immediately comes up with a solution. So the devil, the dark forces never win. Even though this promise took thousands of years to come to pass, God had a way to rescue humanity, and whoever died before He came for the rescue, they, according to the Bible, they were placed in what is called the Abraham's bosom, which was a place, the center of the earth, which was very similar to heaven, but it's not heaven. It's called the Garden of Abraham. Um, anyway, that's a whole different thing. So God right away promised to come down, rescue humanity, and restore relationship back to our relationship back to God. Now let me go over to uh, the last scripture, which is right over here on the book of Isaiah, chapter 7. Uh, there is a promise before God came into the earth. Uh, there was a prophecy that was spoken by the prophet Isaiah uh, in chapter 7, verse 14. And it says, "Therefore, the Lord Himself will give you a sign." So the prophecy is saying that God will give us a sign. And it says, "Behold, a young woman or virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall be called his name Emmanuel." So God is reminding humanity through the prophet Isaiah that that he will come down to earth, that a woman will give birth, a virgin will give birth to a son, and his name will be Emmanuel. Emmanuel means God amongst us. So he's reminding humanity through prophecy that I will come down and I will be among you. And if you connect this to chapter 3 of Genesis, you see that it's a reminder of the original promise that was given to Adam and Eve on chapter 3 of Genesis, chapter 3. So God, the mercy of God is manifested through His goodness and the righteousness of God. He takes uh, great care to present His righteousness through mercy or via mercy, because without mercy, He cannot present who He is to us. So He has to mix it up with mercy in order to show His righteousness. And His righteousness is also His goodness. So you see it throughout the scriptures. You see it a bunch of times, and there'll be times where we can talk about those things. So that's it for today. It's very short, but I think it's very important that to know the history of humanity. And I recommend you read chapter 1, Genesis chapter 1, Genesis chapter 2, so that you see the falling away of from relationship uh, between humanity and God, how that came about, and how God right away came down with a plan to rescue humanity and rescue us from ourselves.